US-China trade war. Who benefits? Who loses? Since Donald Trump won the US presidential election, discussions about a US-China trade war have continued to heat up, mainly reflected in three aspects. 1. Trump imposed a 20% tariff on Chinese goods. 2. Trump kicked Mexico out of the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. 3. Trump levied a 60% tariff on goods from Peru's Chanque port. The first point is understandable, so let's focus on the second and third. Because while these measures appear to target Mexico and Peru on the surface, they are actually aimed at China. In 2018, Trump launched a trade war against China. After Biden took office in 2020, he did not remove the tariffs imposed during Trump's term. As a result, some Chinese companies, seeking to avoid high US tariffs, increased exports to Mexico and then continued shipping to the US through Mexico. Take a look at the changes in China's exports to Mexico. The value of Chinese goods exported to Mexico rose from $50 billion during the previous administration to $100 billion under Trump, an increase of about 100%. Due to China's significant price advantages, other countries struggle to compete. To protect their domestic industries, some nations frequently launch anti-dumping investigations against China and impose high tariffs on Chinese goods. In response, some Chinese companies first export their products to a third country, which then ships them to the target market, a practice known as transshipment trade. For example, suppose I manufacture shoes. Previously, I sold a pair to the US for $10. Now, after the US imposed a 60% tariff on Chinese goods, Americans would have to pay $16 for the same pair, making the product less competitive due to the high price. What's the solution? Since the US imposes a 60% tariff on China, but not on Mexico, I sell the shoes to a Mexican merchant for $10, who then sells them to Americans for $11. This way, everyone benefits. Americans pay $11 instead of $16. The Mexican merchant earns a $1 profit, and the Chinese company maintains its exports. Why was Hong Kong so prosperous in the past? Precisely because after the founding of the People's Republic of China, Western countries imposed a blockade, forcing Sino-foreign trade to go through Hong Kong as a transshipment hub, allowing it to profit massively from the price differences. In reality, China doesn't just rely on Mexico for transshipment, it also uses Vietnam, Malaysia, India, and other countries. For instance, in 2023, Vietnam's trade surplus with the US reached $96.5 billion, and in 2024, it is expected to exceed $100 billion, 3 times the 2017 level. Did Vietnam really snatch such a large market from China in such a short time? In fact, much of Vietnam's surge in exports to the US is actually China-US transshipment trade. In 2024, China-Vietnam trade had a record $200 billion. To put this in perspective, in 2017, Vietnam's imports from China were only $90 billion. After the US launched its trade war, Vietnam's imports from China jumped from $90 billion to $200 billion. How much of this represents Chinese goods being laundered through Vietnam before being shipped to the US? This shows that China is fully capable of circumventing US trade sanctions, and transshipment trade is one of the key methods. Some might ask, can the US just ban Mexico, Vietnam, and others from acting as middlemen? This is a complex issue. First, Mexico and others are sovereign nations with the right to trade with China. Their merchants importing Chinese goods for resale is not illegal. Second, the US struggles with effective traceability. If a product doesn't indicate its origin, how can its true source be determined? Of course, if the US insists on blocking transshipment trade, even pressuring other countries to ban it, it could succeed but at a huge cost. The 60% tariff on goods from Peru's Chanque port serves exactly this purpose. According to a Bloomberg report on October 16, 2024, Mauricio Claver-Caron, an advisor to Trump's transition team, stated, any product passing through Chanque port or other Chinese-controlled ports should be subject to a 60% tariff, treated as if it were made in China. It seems Trump has ways to pressure some countries into banning Chinese transshipment trade. But here's the problem. With so many countries globally and transshipment trade being highly profitable, can the US block one, two, or even all of them? Completely shutting down the transshipment trade is extremely difficult and would alienate many nations as soon as Trump pressures one country. Another would fill the gap, creating an endless cycle of resentment. More importantly, China won't sit idly by and will certainly retaliate. On November 15, 2023, China's Ministry of Finance and State Taxation Administration announced, starting December 1, 2024, export tax rebates for aluminum, copper, and other products will be cancelled, while rebates for certain refined oil products and photovoltaic goods will be reduced from 13% to 9%. What does this mean? Suppose a product costs $80 with $20 in taxes. Selling at $100 would leave no profit. Previously, China encouraged exports by offering a 10% rebate, $10 back per $100 exported, ensuring company profits. But when Chinese products hold a monopoly, continuing rebates would mean letting foreign buyers attain them at low prices. For example, if only China produces a certain type of chip, cutthroat competition among 100 firms could drive down export prices. Canceling rebates forces firms to raise prices. For monopoly goods like rare earths, China could even impose export taxes. Before 2014, China's rare earth export tariff was 25%, but it was scrapped after a WTO lawsuit. Now, with the US provoking a trade war, China can reintroduce measures like export controls, quotas, licenses, and tariffs as countermeasures. Why is the EU compromising? China may lower import tariffs on EU fuel-powered cars in exchange. China is the world's largest auto market, with 2024 sales of 29 million vehicles, nearly double the US's 15 million. Lower tariffs would make EU luxury cars more price competitive, helping maintain European jobs and trade balance. However, this could slow the EU's transition to electric vehicles. For China, the trade war also brings negative effects. In 2024, China's unemployment rate hit 14.5% as some low-end manufacturers lost out to Vietnam and India, leading to bankruptcies and layoffs. If employment issues are resolved properly, social problems could arise. Countries worldwide can be divided into four categories. Agriculture countries include Argentina, Brazil, etc. Resource energy-oriented countries include Saudi Arabia, Russia, etc. High-and manufacturing countries include Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea. Low-end manufacturing countries include Vietnam, India, and others. China spans both low to mid and high-end manufacturing, with rapid advancements in the latter. The US trade war on China will inevitably provoke retaliation. China may impose tariffs on US agricultural products, benefiting other farming nations and boosting their cooperation with China. The US push for manufacturing expansion will spike energy demand, potentially causing a global energy surplus, leading these nations to also see ties with China. Meanwhile, low to mid-end manufacturing countries will profit from the shifts. In short, the US-China trade war harms all sides, driving up prices, worsening unemployment, and dragging down the global economy. Finally, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I'll reply to each one. Thanks for watching, and if you like this, don't forget to like and follow.